Hello, everybody. This is TNT's podcast today on family preparedness, and we are covering, in a little bit of rain, we're covering gardening. We're here with Amy, and Amy is, tell me why we should be talking to you today.
Why you should be talking to me today. Um, I got into gardening when my girls were small. I wanted an activity for us to be able to do together that was healthy, promoted vegetable consumption, and I was worried about all of the toxicity in the food supply as well, and that you just can't bank on it. You need to be able to know how to grow your own food and sustain yourself. Should that become a necessity, which it has repeatedly in the past, you don't have to look too far back in our own history where victory gardens and depression era, really help people get through some hard times. And it's just really fun. It's, yeah, it's a great experience.
So, calming for you,
Yeah.
anxiety killer, all those good things. Good.
Yeah.
With what you have here, and we'll be doing a little bit of a tour of Amy's garden here in a minute or two. But with what you produce here, how can how well can you sustain your family with that?
To be honest, not very well. But what I have is maybe about 15 years of experience growing my own food. So if I needed to scale up, I could certainly do that. But for now, I keep it as a hobby. So it's fun and it's not something that I end up dreading to do, or something that's too time consuming.
Cool.
So
If people want to follow you online, where would they do that?
I have a blog, a website that will help keep people informed about what to do when and how and best practices. And that's at secondbreakfastgardens.com.
Secondbreakfastgardens.com, and I'll make sure that is on the screen there and in the description for you.
So
cool. All right. So right now it's April 12th. So we're right in the middle of April. What should we be planting right now?
Right now, we're transitioning between cool season crops. So that's a lot of your cabbage family, the brassica families, your broccolis, cabbages, and then lettuces, carrots. So those can either go in now if you haven't already, or you can also begin to plan for the warm season crops. So you can start today, you can start seeds that are in the cucurbit family. That's all of your squashes, pumpkins, the warmth loving cucumbers, things like that. And then you can also start your nightshade crop family. So that's peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants, things of that. And when you want to get those seeds started, you want to keep them in your house where they can be warm and cozy. And then sometime around Mother's Day is when they're ready to go outside.
Okay. So getting them started inside, what would you need for that?
Yeah. Do you want to go through that together and see what that looks like?
We could, but you could start them inside. Is it ever too late to start them?
You can get too late because they are actually, like tomatoes are a perennial plant. That means that they want to grow for 10 years, 15 years. But we grow them here because we're chilly in the wintertime as an annual. So the earlier you can get them started and then bring them out when they're pretty vigorous, then they will have time to finish before it gets too cold and they get killed at the end of the year. So if you miss some of those dates, it's no problem because we are in a wealth of farmers markets and plenty of places to go buy starts. In some ways, that's the better way to do it, particularly with tomatoes. When you buy a pack of tomatoes, you get maybe 50 seeds. But in anybody's garden, you really only have space for maybe 3. Okay. So buying 3 starts can be more practical than trying to start.
And by starts, you mean the ones that are already in the planter that are already grown?
Exactly. Okay. They're in a little pot of some kind and you take them home and transplant them in your garden.
All right. Because growing them from the seed takes a little bit of time, and this kind of gives you a jump start.
Yeah.
So the bigger your plant that you can find out there, the better, or?
Well, you want to make sure that it's not blooming. So when it's blooming, it's stopping putting its energy into vegetative growth and it's starting to put its energy into flower and fruit production. So if you have a start that's about this big with flowers all over it, you can pick those flowers off, and that's helpful. But really, it's telling you it's ready to start making fruit and it's not ready to keep
Gotcha.
putting on growth.
All right.
So there's a fine balance, but I like to experiment. So if I'm gonna start tomatoes, I'll start some inside. Um, I don't know, maybe early March or something like that. Then I'll start some in April, and then we'll just see how where things are. And then when I'm at a farmer's market and I see a particularly beautiful one, then I'm gonna grab that too.
Okay.
There's always room for one
So
more.
with a lot of people that are just getting started, what's hard to kill
What's hard to kill?
or
Um,
what's easy to grow?
The easiest, most funnest thing with, especially with kids, is like a radish. It's a very short time from when you put a radish seed in the ground that you have a radish to actually pick and eat. So there's that instant gratification, kind of a confidence builder. And then when you plant those in March and they're done by April, that space is also available for other things too. So I also highly recommend lettuce greens. If you're a salad eater, lettuce greens, you can pick the babies. So right away, you're almost getting of something to eat
Now,
almost
again, with
immediately.
all those things, you're looking at getting probably put some plants that are already established in there
Mhm.
rather than growing it from seed.
You can do either. You can start your seeds inside. You can put them right down in the soil because they are cool tolerant. So they can handle a 40 degrees soil temperature.
Okay.
If you put a
How would you measure soil temperature?
So I like to use our little ThermaPen. I have a soil thermometer with a dial, and I had such trouble reading it that I just prefer using our household ThermaPen, and it gives you an instant digital reading of what your soil temperature is.
And how much does something like that cost?
That's a good question. I know it's probably around $50 or so.
Okay.
I know you can find some digital thermometers somewhere less, around $10 or $15, but the ThermaPen brand is usually a little bit more.
Why is soil temperature so important? I mean, right now it's what, 50 degrees, 60 degrees outside?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Why is soil temperature, why can't we relate those two?
right. So soil is definitely an energy sink. So it stays cooler for longer. The air temperature swings dramatically from day to night. Soil temperature does too, but to a much less degree. So even if we get like a 60-degree day, the soil temperature is probably going to still hover around 40, maybe less than that. And that's only in the upper layer. In the lower layers, it's even going to be colder and
Okay.
chillier.
All
And
right.
when the soil is cold, so seeds know when it's safe for them to germinate. So they won't germinate and start growing until they're warm enough. And then they know that it's time to put out foliage. If they did that too soon, then the frost would come and then they would die. And so they're smart enough to know when to germinate based on soil temperature. And there's not a lot of activity in the soil microbially.
It's a hard one.
Yes, we depend on soil microbes for liberating nutrients. There's a complete symbiosis. A lot of the energy that plants make from the sun, photosynthesis, goes down into the soil to feed, specifically to feed the microbes, to liberate nutrients for them. So there's this constant exchange going on with the soil microbiology. And that's just not happening in the wintertime. The microbes are cold, they're just huddled in, waiting for
Okay.
warmer temperatures.
Let's talk about dirt. Where do we get the dirt from? Can we just dig up stuff in our own backyard and that's good enough? Or do we need extra?
You need extra when you have like boxes like we have. Unless you have a reserve of soil somewhere, you're generally going to need to bring something in to fill it, and you're going to want to look for something organic. But
Why is that?
why do we need to?
Yeah, why do we need to get more dirt for our dirt?
Great question. Well, when we built our boxes, I simply didn't have anywhere in my yard to take it from. But garden boxes are actually big containers. And when you have a container, you're going to want something that's a little bit lighter and fluffier than our clay. And people hear clay and they're like, oh, I have clay soil. I can't grow anything. The truth is that we have the best soils on the planet for growing, and clay is amazing for growing plants. Um, Compacted clay, not so much. Disturbed clay, maybe not so much. But there's a lot that we can do to bring our soil back to life and then create that kind of porosity and that soil matrix that's really conducive to growing the most amazing gardens on the planet here.
Go. All right. So
Hi.
we were talking about the lines
Yes,
that you create
the-
here.
The strings. So
Okay.
I'll just tie those, run those down, and then give my crops something to climb.
Cool.
I like to grow squash and cucumbers that way up. They have a tendency to get powdery mildew, so having them up gives them more airflow. That's a fungus, so the more drying, the more airflow, the more sun exposure, the better. I wanted to show you guys, here's what the pots look like in the ground. So this is probably mostly decomposed. And this is a nasturtium. The leaves are edible and the flowers are gorgeous. Hummingbirds love them, and the flowers are also edible as well. So when you're looking at preparing your garden beds for planting, I don't turn my soil. In the wintertime, I cover everything with leaves. I have some bins of leaves that I collect from my neighbors and from my own yard. And then I cover my bed with leaves, and then anything crop residues left over, I just drop them on top. And sometimes I'll do cover crop as well. That's what these guys are, it's old cover crop that I decided to leave for some flowers, for some early pollinators. And then in the springtime, I pull all that away because there's 1,000,001 slugs living in there. And then I just lightly work the very top of the soil. So what that looks like is, with a tool like this, I'll move my irrigation cords out of the way, and then I'm just working the very top inch. These are some of the little turnips that I've planted, so I won't lose those little guys. And that'll take out any weeds that are growing in there, and then just gives you a nice fine seed bed. But
So
I
when
don't
do you
turn the soil.
When do you add the dirt from the store?
So when we put in the boxes, we got a big delivery from Best Buy Landscape Supply, their organic grow. And most of that is organic matter. So in a couple of years, you realize that your beds are empty. So you need to get more. But what you're looking for is something with organic matter, of course, but also something with sand, silt, and clay in it that has actual soil. And the soil particles are what stays, the organic matter goes away. So what I like to do, after I've prepped the beds and I've planted, I'll take a product like this from Wilco. This is a really good one. And I'll use this as a mulch. So I'll tuck that in and around my plants, or just as the top layer. And it's so dark and nice. Here, let me show you what it looks like.
Do you just put that on top, or do you mix it in with the existing soil?
I just put it on top. I don't turn my soil. I don't heavily work it because I don't want to disrupt the what's going on underneath, the microbiology. The soil is like, it's a community. And when you're turning your soil, you're basically being Godzilla, and you're like stomping Tokyo down, and all your microbes are running screaming. There's reasons why people do it, but it's far more sustainable and easier.
So if you have a bed, let's say from last year, the year before, maybe just add a little bit of the bed soil in there and rough it up just a little bit for the top layer,
Right.
and that's it.
And it depends on how you put your beds to bed for the winter time. If you've covered it with leaves like I have, your worms are in there eating it all winter long and processing it. Worm castings are like the world's best fertilizer. But if you haven't, let's say you did what I did when I was learning, and I left my garden beds bare. What happens is over the winter time, all of the rain and everything compacts the soil, and you won't be able to grow anything in it.
Can you buy worms?
I wouldn't. It's one of those Field of Dreams things. If you build it, they will come. So if you put the mulch down in the wintertime, they will come, they will proliferate, and they will do their thing.
What about worm castings?
Yeah, worm castings is a fantastic fertilizer to add, especially if your soils are a little bit leached out because maybe you didn't cover them on the winter time. So what I do like to do, I'll grab a tool for you. This is as intrusive as I get with my soil, is that I will take a digging fork like this one, stab it in there, see how soft that went in, and then I might just lift and wiggle. I call this the stab and wiggle treatment. That's a little more compacted there, and that's just very gently loosening up the soil and aerating it a little bit. And if you feel like you've got some compacted areas, that's a good way to go about it without destroying the soil structure that your microbes have worked so hard to put into place. So a couple things I wanted to show your viewers. On my website, I have this chart. It's specific for our area, Planting Guide for Garden Annuals. And it has when you want to start your seeds indoors, and then when you can start them outdoors, and if you did do some starts, when you can plant those dates. And you want to check your soil temperatures on that. That's another column that would be helpful for me to add, because like putting out your broccoli, you want to make sure that the soil temperature is about 40 degrees in your beds before you put them out.
Cool.
Yeah, and onions, they can take like 35 degrees.
And just amazing. One more time, where would we find all this again?
On my website. Here we are here. So just Google Second Breakfast Gardens. And then you can subscribe to my blog and you'll get emails about what to do when. And I have monthly calendars of different things you can do for each month to get you set up for the best growing season.
And so is that also on Facebook and Instagram?
Right.
Perfect.
Okay, so we have our soil prep. If you would like to talk fertilizer for a moment, we can do that as well. I did a soil test about 5 years ago, and a complete fertilizer, I'll take you over to these boxes over here. Complete fertilizer will look something like this. This is your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium, so NPK. And this is a proportion of how much is in there. And most places recommend that you use a complete fertilizer, but my soil test revealed that I have very high phosphorus because we use a lot of organic matter.
How do you get a soil test done?
Very good question. I brought this out. Super simple. I used A&L Labs, and this soil test showed me that I had very high phosphorus, which is here, way up into the red, very high organic matter. 5% is about what you're shooting for. I had 22%, so I had an overabundance of organic matter, and I've since dialed that back. And very high potassium as well. So I don't use a complete fertilizer. That was a huge eye-opener for me. I use a nitrogen heavy fertilizer like this one. Feather meal if I can find it, because it's 1200. So this is my nitrogen number. That's what I'm looking for. And when I'm planting in the springtime, I'll add a light addition to this. I don't like to overdo it with fertilizer, particularly with the nitrogen, because when the rain comes, it just simply leaches out of the soil and becomes pollution. So it's better to rely on your microbial systems to release fertilizer as your plants need it. And
cool.
They'll do that if you have a active, biologically active soil. Your microbes are working in symbiosis with your plants, and you just keep an eye on them. If you're seeing a lot of yellowing in your leaves, a lot of chlorosis, it might be telling you that it's needing a little bit more nitrogen, and then you can boost that with like a liquid fertilizer that breaks down easily. These organic fertilizers take time. They actually rely on the soil microbiology to make them bioavailable to plants. This is not in a form that a plant can uptake immediately. When you get Miracle-Gro, your synthetics, your plants can take them up immediately. So there's a little bit of lag time. If I had some nitrogen deficiencies and I put just this on there, I wouldn't see any help for a couple of weeks probably.
All right. Final thoughts for somebody. What would you suggest for like a apartment balcony garden?
Apartment balcony gardens. I suggest this amazing book. This is the Bible on everything containers. You can grow a tremendous amount of food on a little balcony, and if you walk around the city, you probably see that. You probably see balconies that are just covered in plants, and it's a lot of fun. And when you do container growing in pots, that's when you will want a complete fertilizer, because you're probably going to be using a potting soil, which is more of a media. It's a soil-less planting media. So it's going to depend on you to put everything the plants need into the soil on a regular basis and stay on top of that. And that's when you'd want to use a complete fertilizer. And it's very easy for them to warm up, and you can grow an amazing bounty and several different kinds of plants in the same pot. You can have your tomatoes up like this, and then you can have some lettuces growing down low. It can be a lot of fun.
Final wish for everybody that's starting and working a garden this year.
Final wish. I wish you a fantastic growing season. Don't be afraid to make things beautiful, and start more than you think you need, because nature is a numbers game. You're going to lose things, but if you have a lot of things growing, you'll have plenty of things to fill in the gaps.
All right. We're all done. Thank you all.